And welcome to our webinar up to Understanding Connecticut Paid Leave. I'm Kate Bauman with the MetroHartford Alliance. Today we are hosting the webinar in partnership with the Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Authority. Before we get started, I'm just going to run through a couple housekeeping items. Wanted to let everyone know that everyone is muted and your videos will be off, so no need to worry about anyone seeing you on the other end. But we will be going through all of the slides, and we do encourage people throughout to submit questions. We're asking if you could submit questions through the question and answer module and not through the chat function. We would like you to use the chat function if you do have any issues with audio or visual, or logging in and out of the webinars. Please use the chat function and submit all your questions into the Q&A module. And then at the close of the end of the presentation, we will run through all of your questions and answers. At the end of this we will be sending up a follow-up email with all additional information, as well as we will be recording this webinar. So we'll be sending over a link to where you can access that on our website. So again, excited to have you here today. Certainly a very important topic. And with that, I will introduce our presenter, who is the CEO at Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Authority, Andrea Barton-Reeves.
Good morning. And Kate, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I'm here with some of my team members from the Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Authority, then Chris Floyd, who is our Acting Chief Operating Officer, and Brian Boyer, who is our Acting Chief Marketing Officer. So we welcome the opportunity and thank you for having us today. So today I'll speak about a few things, one of which is just to give you a little bit of background about who I am. We'll talk about where we are and what's in store. We'll then go into a little bit more detail about eligibility and what employers need to know. And I'll try to demonstrate that through a case study, because that really seems to be the best way to apply the very long and complex law in a really realistic way. We'll go through some of the most frequently asked questions that I get and that we get at the Paid Leave Authority right before the launch. And then we'll show you a little bit of our website that will be available soon, and then speak to you about what's next. So I started with the authority on March 2nd, and prior to coming here, I was the CEO at HARC, which is a large not-for-profit in Hartford that supports people with intellectual disabilities and their families. I was there, I joined that organization first as its Vice President of Administration and its in-house counsel. And I also did a lot of labor work as we were organized under District 1199. I've done a few things in the community, as you can see listed there, and I still continue to serve as a board member for Leadership Greater Hartford and the YWCA Hartford region. And I'm from New Jersey, so I went to school Rutgers, and I got my law degree at New York Law School. Where are we and what's in store? Here is a timeline that essentially gives a summary of where we are as an authority. As many of you know, the bill was signed into law last June by Governor Lamont. And from July through October, we had board members join. I then came on. I was appointed by the governor and the board in January and started my work in early March. Then through April and May, we just continued to build the authority. We had to hire a partner that would help us build the employee contribution system through which the 0.5% of contributions can be remitted. And then in May, we needed to bring on a partner that would help us with our outreach and our engagement, really helping us to do things like we're doing today, which is to talk to our many stakeholders in the community about what we are doing. So we hired Slalom to help build our employee contribution solution along with our website. And then we also hired Miranda Creative, which is a woman-owned, minority-owned firm in Norwich, to help us do our statewide outreach. In June, we just began doing, we did all of our work in earnest. We will be launching our website. The plan is to have it launched by September 4th, and I'll give you just a bit of a preview of that. On January 1, 2021, employee contributions to the state trust fund for paid leave will begin. And then in 2022, about a year later, benefits will be accessible for those who make contributions to the fund. And here is just another example. This is actually a timeline that you will find on the website when it becomes live that will outline for you all of the dates, primarily as employers, that you should really be cognizant of, and either you or your payroll person or your third-party administrator should pay some attention to. Registration for employers will open on November 1st. And so what does that mean? That means that we would like employers to come to the website and let us know that you're there, that you're in the community. If you use a third-party administrator, a payroll provider, they will do that on your behalf. But we're just asking if you could do that. If you are self-employed or a sole proprietor, you can also come to the site and register starting on November 1st. We're collecting very basic information, the name of your business, your own name, your address, a good email address. So we have ways of communicating with you that are reliable so you can get information as you need it. So on January 1, let me just go back a moment. So our sole proprietors and our self-employed individuals have to, if you decide to join now, you have to stay in the plan for 3 years. You can really opt in. Those two groups can opt in at any time, but they should know that the statute says that they have to stay in for 3 years. Starting in January, employers will begin to make their employee contributions by withholding 1/2%. And that is payable to the authority's trust fund. The trust fund is managed by the Office of the Treasurer of the state. Employees, and I'll answer some of these questions earlier, but employees cannot opt out. If you're an employer, you have one or more people, you have to participate. Then, as we mentioned before, in January 1, we can have our sole proprietors and self-employed participate at the same contribution rate. Then payments are due they end up every quarter. The statute itself says that payments are due weekly as you are paid or you bring in revenue or income personally. But we've decided that quarterly just seems to be a better cadence for quite a number of people, so we've left it that way. And then starting about a fall or winter of 2021, we will start to put a process in place where people can begin to submit their applications for paid leave because benefits should be made payable by January of 2022. All right. So what does it mean to be eligible for paid family and medical leave? So what exactly is covered? The people who are covered are employers. If you have one or more employees, you have to withhold those wages of 1/2%. And as I mentioned before, sole proprietors and self-employed individuals can in fact opt in and remain in for a minimum of 3 years. Those who are not covered include employees of the state of Connecticut, those who work for municipalities unless they are covered employees as defined by the statute. And that essentially means that if they are in a bargaining unit, that bargaining unit has come to some agreement that those employees within that bargaining unit can participate in the plan. All non-public elementary or secondary schools and also local or regional boards of education. What are some of these scenarios that qualify for benefits? If you are starting or expanding your family, that by birth, adoption, or foster care, you can certainly apply for benefits. If you're caring for yourself or you're a caretaker or caregiver, I should say, for another individual, you may also qualify for leave. You can qualify for leave if you are also a victim of family violence. I should say this leave is limited to the 12 days of paid leave, which is consonant with the Family Violence Act. Or you can take leave if you need to care for a family member who is on active duty in the military or for some other reasons related to military duty, and I'll go through that in just a bit. But these are the primary scenarios under which you may qualify for benefits. There is, as I mentioned just before now, especially for those who serve our country. So it is a military leave for your service member and your family. It is a one-time benefit of 26 weeks in any 12-month period for any armed forces member who has been injured in the line of duty. So that you may take that leave, or employees can take that leave if you have someone who is a member of the armed forces, is undergoing medical treatment, therapy, recuperation, outpatient status, or they're on temporary disability. And this is created really to honor the service of those who help to protect our country. So what is it that you as employers primarily and businesses really need to know? The statute is long, as I've mentioned before. When it was originally passed, it was 47 pages long. It's now been added and it's been codified, I should say. And it's much longer than that because now it includes all of the definitions and it's quite complicated. So I'll try to just get to the salient points here. So what the statute does is it changes Connecticut Family and Medical Leave starting January 1, 2022. And so if you're a small business, you've really never had to engage in family and medical leave coverage ever before, meaning if you had 50 or 75 employees or fewer, you really didn't have any interaction with family medical leave. That law now with respect to Connecticut has changed. So starting in January 1, 2022, every employer, regardless of its size, if you have one employee, you will have to administer family and medical leave. And I will later on distinguish that from paid leave. If you're a larger employer and you have been offering family and medical leave, the federal standards for family and medical leave do not change. So we're very cognizant that this causes a lot of confusion in some instances because the terms for the Connecticut leave and the federal leave are not the same. They were closer to being the same before, and now they are very different. So we'll try to help, one of our jobs at the authorities to try to help employers to walk through that. So as you see, as I say here, that employers who are covered by the federal and state leave before are still responsible for administering both types of leave. And we understand the complications related to that, and we can help you walk through those. So paid leave is available through us at the Paid Leave Authority or through an employer's private plan. There is a provision in the statute that allows employers to create their own plan as long as it is the same or offers more than the plan that the state would offer. And the authority has the ability to approve that plan statutorily. So how are you eligible as an employee for paid leave? You have to earn $22,350 in your highest earning quarter of your past 4 of the 5 quarters. So if you look back on all of those months, we're looking to see whether or not you've earned $2,350 within a 3-month period in one of those quarters. You're employed, or you've been employed within the last 12 weeks, or if you're self-enrolled, sole proprietor, or a self-employed individual. You are eligible, other than the leave that I spoke about with respect to the military, up to 12 weeks of leave in a 12-month period. There is an additional provision to allow for 2 additional weeks for pregnancy incapacity. So incapacity is a word that is within the statute. None of us at the authority particularly like it, but it's the language that's being used. And it is whether or not a healthcare provider determines that during a pregnancy, a woman either needs additional care before, during, or after. I think what's important to know here is that there is no job protection for paid leave at the authority. What we do is we determine whether or not individuals have met this eligibility criteria that's outlined here. And then we determine whether or not you have a qualifying event. And with those 2 determinations, we then determine whether or not you're eligible for benefits payments. Job protection comes after 3 months of employment. So if you have an employee who's been working for less than that period of time, you really have to have that conversation with them. And we will be telling people as they come to the authority, make sure that you've had a discussion with your employer about how long you've been working there and the fact that you're going out on leave, because we will actually be having some communication with them as well. There's also a difference here in that there's a broad definition of family. Now, family includes the traditional relationships that we think about, but it also can include those that are what we call affinity relationships. So someone who's like an aunt, like a grandmother, like a parent to you. And people can take time off to care for those people in their families as well. And the question is, how do you determine what that relationship is like so that someone doesn't have multiple family members and are always taking leave? So we are working on clarifying those definitions with the Department of Labor so that we can put everyone's mind at ease around that. And again, as I just mentioned, the Department of Labor, they are the department that is responsible if leave or benefits are denied. I should say are tonight. So here's the case study that I was speaking of earlier. This is Cassie, and we're going to assume that she works for a larger employer, and she needs to take 3 weeks off to attend to her own serious medical condition. She meets the work and the earnings requirements, but she's not been working with you that long, so she only has 7 days of accrued paid time off. As her employer, this is the question we get quite often: what can you do? So you have a few options. So assuming that she's met the eligibility criteria, we always want to be very clear that as long as she's met that criteria, this leave is an entitlement. So it is not any different than the federal leave, for those of you who are familiar with that. If a person meets those federal leave guidelines and they are entitled to take that leave, you can't deny it. And the same is true for the state leave. And that has always been the case under the old law and the new one. So if she's asking to be paid during that time period, there are a few things that you can do. Right? You can allow her to use her 3 earned paid days, and she can take the rest of the 3 weeks unpaid. Or if she qualifies under any other paid leave employer options that you might have, such as short-term or long-term disability, you can help her determine whether she meets those criteria for eligibility, and she can get her 3 paid days, and you can offer her some employer options to get the rest of her time paid. And if she qualifies for federal leave and you're an employer that has been mandated to offer it before, she may qualify for that federal leave. Again, that would be unpaid. Or finally, and this is in no particular order, Cassie can apply to the paid leave authority to seek the benefits for her paid time off for those 3 weeks. And then we will do the same determination. Has she earned enough money? Has she worked the number of hours? Does she have a qualifying event? And if she does, then she can get paid for that. Okay, that's my next slide here. I know that there are a lot of questions, and we all do at the authority realize that there are a lot of questions around this. So here are some of them that we get most frequently. Do you have to keep her job open while she is out on leave? So what our answer to this is, you really should consult your employment attorney if you have one, or your human resources professional within your organization, or if you have a relationship with one with your organization, so that you can get the right answer to that. Generally, if she's working there for 3 months, and so that answers the 2 questions I have further down, she's entitled to job protection, and you do have to leave her job open. What happens when Cassie comes back to work is that if she qualifies and she's entitled to job protection, you have to put her back in the job that she had when she left. Now, this is the question we get all the time: who will do Cassie's job while she's away? This is an issue that I think employers have always contended with. I know when I was leading HARC, and also I ran HR when I was there, that is something that has to be figured out internally. So she's going to be gone for 3 weeks. That is something that's been happening all the time. And it's really up to each employer to determine who will do her job while she's out. So the final bullet here is a question we get all the time: how will I know if Cassie applies for paid leave at the authority? So although we're still working through the details of how employers will be notified, they will be notified. But here's the difference. So we have some employers, I think, who are viewing this benefit in very much the same way that unemployment benefits are determined and administered. So, and there's a significant difference here, one of which is that this fund is completely employee funded, as opposed to the way in which unemployment insurance is funded. So employers don't have an ability to contest the application. There's no hearing process. There's none of those things exist for this leave. It is essentially an entitlement if the worker meets the eligibility requirements. That doesn't mean that we won't let you know that they've applied. And we may ask some very basic questions about how long they've worked there, whether they meet the eligibility requirements. We may be asking some questions about their pay and data. And so we can get additional data points in order to make a determination around their eligibility. We are also determining whether or not we can share legally how long they'll be out and when they will return. So we're almost at the end of figuring that out, and we will. So it isn't as if employers will be in the dark, but it is not the same as unemployment insurance. So I want to make sure that we have that understanding. And just here are a few more questions that we get. So Mentioned the first one earlier. What are the purposes of requesting paid? For the purposes of requesting paid leave, who's considered a family member? This is the statutory definition of what a family member is. So it's a spouse, it's a sibling, it's a son or daughter, grandparent, or people who have equivalent relationships. As I said earlier, us, and I've said it in other venues, we at the authority also don't want everyone to have multiple family members either. We want to make sure that those relationships are ones that are, in fact, equivalent to spouse, sibling, son, or daughter. So we are working through the types of questions we'll be asking and the attestations we will asking people to make sure that we are, in fact, providing benefits and leave to people who are taking care of people who are legitimately a part of their family. The other question we get quite frequently is how the trust fund solvency will be managed. There is understandably concern about 0.5% being sufficient to fund the trust fund. And now that we're in a pandemic and many, many people are not working, there's even greater concern about whether or not the fund can remain solvent. So our response to that is that there is, in fact, an updated actuarial study that has been commissioned that will outline the different scenarios of different levels of employment and contribution. And in addition to that, the statute itself allows for the adjustment of benefits to assure the fund's solvency. So somewhat related to that is this issue of fraud and abuse and how we will manage that. We are actually borrowing some of the best practices from the Workers' Compensation Commission and the Unemployment Commission and other states that are also administering paid and family medical leave, so we can understand what they are doing so that we can make sure that we guard against fraud and abuse as much as possible. So even with that said, we know that someone will try to use the system in a way in which it was not intended. So the idea here is not to avoid any fraud or abuse, because we know that it will happen. The question is, how can we avoid it, and how can we minimize it, and how can we rectify it when it happens? So that's what we'll be working on. Where can you learn more about paid family and medical leave? We will be launching our website, ctpaidleave.org, on or about September 4th. Here is just a snapshot, some screenshots of what you will see. So this site will have an abundance of information for employers, for employees, for self-employed, for sole proprietors, for third-party administrators. And you can see here on my right, not only will there be lots of written content that will be able to answer your questions, and on these 4 areas on the left, you can see that there are different boxes that if you click through those, they will give you lots of information about your particular scenario. There are also videos that are available in English and Spanish, starting when we launch the site on September 4th, that will explain that. And these videos are on YouTube, so you'll be able to direct your employees to them. There will also be fact sheets that will be downloadable from this site, so you don't have to answer all these questions yourself. You can certainly click on those sheets. You can direct your employees to also go to the site and click on the frequently asked questions and the fact sheets themselves, where all of their specific questions can be answered. If in fact they can't do that, there will also be a contact us feature where questions can be submitted, and someone from the Paid Leave Authority will be monitoring that and then answering those questions. So that's essentially what our website will offer. It is very, very robust, and we think that you'll be able to find just about everything that you need here. You'll also find an opportunity to determine what your contributions might be. So if your employees are asking, well, I'm not even really sure what 0.5% is, and how much is that going to be out of my paycheck, you can see here that we have a contributions estimator. You can actually put in the amount that you're paid, the frequency with which you're paid, and you will get an estimate. If you're a self-employed, you're a sole proprietor, you can also do that too. So we just use the very simple term, I get paid weekly, but it all depends on when you have the frequency of your revenue or income. You can include that as well, and you can estimate just about how much you will contribute, which will be helpful for employers, because I know you'll get this question often. So it'll be helpful to be able to direct your employees to the site so they can estimate that on their own as frequently as they like. What's next? Here are the key dates, as I spoke about earlier. Our website launch is planned for September 4th. Employer registration begins in November. Employee contributions start in January. They continue through 2021, and their benefits payments start in 2022. But as we work towards our key goals, we really do welcome your partnership. So we're delighted to be here at the MetroHartford Alliance today and to share what we're doing at a very high level. But if you have more networking and outreach opportunities so that we can share what we're doing at the Paid Family and Medical Lea Authority, we really welcome that. We will soon also be launching our social media content. And it is on all of the major platforms, so that would be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I'm sure I'm missing one, and Brian will tell me, and we will have content there. We do seek a lot of collaboration so that we can educate employers, especially small employers who have had no interaction with family or medical leave before. So our goal is to provide you with webinars and other types of information that will be coming fairly soon so that we can teach you specifically how family and medical leave works and how you can administer it within your own organization. So if you have a dedicated audience that you think would really benefit either from this type of presentation or something more detailed, you certainly have our attention, and we're more than happy to hold a similar session or sessions with your audience so that they can learn more. I want to thank you for your time. And here are, until our website launches, here are a couple of ways. The one way that you can reach us, which is through this email address, PFMLI comments@ct.gov. And not long from now, you'll be able to go directly to the website, to that Contact Us page, and be able to reach us directly. So thank you.
Andrea, thank you so much. And we do have some questions, so we want to encourage anyone that has additional questions, you can put them into the Q&A module down at the bottom of your screen. The first question is, interns or temporary employees in other state paid leave laws are given the option to opt out. Will this occur in Connecticut?
No, there is not an opt-out option. There is a definition of covered employee in the statute. So if you've not met that definition, meaning you've not worked the requisite number of weeks, or you've not earned the requisite amount of income in those 5 quarters, and meaning you've earned the $2,350 in the highest quarter of those 5 quarters, if you've not met that criteria, then you probably wouldn't be eligible. But there's no specific carve out in our statute for those categories of employees.
Okay, great. And next question, is it the employee's or the employer's responsibility to submit a claim for benefits?
So it is the employee's responsibility to submit a claim for benefits. So if the employee believes that they have one of those qualifying events that I outlined, let's say that they're about to adopt a new baby boy or girl, and they'd like to have some time off for bonding, that would be the employee's responsibility to file that claim for benefits.
Thank you. And we're going here, how does this paid leave coordinate with short-term disability?
So that's one of the reasons that I use that scenario. So the employer can, in fact, if they have short-term disability, it doesn't require you to make any changes to whatever you're offering your employees now. You can then what we recommend is that when the employee files a request for leave under the statute when it changes in 2022, that you have a conversation with the HR person, or if you are the HR person, you run through what all the scenarios are. So it could be more advantageous that they take the short-term disability. It would really mean that they would have to sort of take a look at what would give them, I think, perhaps the best payment outcome and give them the longest time out. So you don't have to make any changes. If your employee determines that they'd rather just come directly to the authority, they can certainly do that, but we're encouraging people to make sure they have a thorough conversation with their employer to understand what all their options are first.
Great. Next question is, if an employee is entitled to federal FMLA, do we still follow the process of sending them the FMLA forms, such as the healthcare certification, etc.?
Yes. You do. So that's what I was referring to earlier. So It makes it complicated, and you know, I mean, I can personally apologize for that, although I didn't pass the statute, but you know, having been in an employer of a fairly large organization, I can appreciate the challenges that come with having to administer the Connecticut leave, which has a very different criteria than the federal leave. But if you have an employee that is possibly eligible for federal leave, you should, in an abundance of caution, offer them that option as well, although it's unpaid.
Okay. Now, we do require that employees give us some idea of their expected return to work date. Whether or not they are paid by the authority is a separate issue, I think. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. So if you can still ask your employees, when do you think you're coming back? How long do you think you'll be away? You have the right to be able to know so that you can plan for their absence. Clearly, work still needs to get done while they're away. So it isn't as if they just kind of come to the authority and then disappear for weeks and weeks and then reappear afterwards. I know these are some of the concerns that employers have raised. Your employee still has an obligation to communicate with you as they had before with any kind of leave that they were taking. We're not telling them that they've abdicated that responsibility.
Okay. Next question is, employees of the state are not eligible for the paid benefit. Will state employees be required to pay into this fund?
No, they're not.
Next question is, what can you share with us about the private plan alternative? The regs include an employee vote regarding this.
Yes, that's right. So we are so close to being able to get the regulations nailed down for the private plan. We did draft some proposals for the private plan. Those were posted for public comment. That comment closed last Friday. So we will be going to our board of directors in their next meeting, which I believe is September 10th, for them to discuss what that proposal is. And it is essentially meeting all of the criteria of the statute as we would have to at the state, and including the voting provision. There's a lot of discussion around the voting provision. How will that be done? Who has to vote? And you know, we're having discussions with the private insurer community so that we can do it in a way that isn't onerous or burdensome. And so, because we're very cognizant of that, and we're one of the few states that have it. Some had it and abandoned it. That's not the case here, so we do have to find a way to do it. It will just mean that we will have to know that the majority of employees have had an opportunity to voice their preference, and so that I can give you more specificity probably in another couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. And now, are all employees paying the 0.5% even if they only work a few hours a week and wouldn't be eligible for the paid leave themselves?
So yes, if you're an employee, you are going. So eventually, we think everyone will eventually earn the $2,350 in somewhere in that 12-week period. The way that it's designed is to be as inclusive as possible. So yes, people will be contributing.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there processes that you can share about how employers can get approvals for the exemption to opt into a private plan that is at least equal to the Connecticut paid family medical leave benefits?
Mm-hmm. So I'll say it the same way as I said before, that we're very, very close to being able to figure that out. Right now, I think if you go on the Connecticut Department of Insurance site, we believe that the checklist for the private plan should be there on that site. So you can go there, I'm sorry, don't have the link, and you can see what the requirements are. So those are the requirements that have also been posted for public comment, but they are available for public viewing. They are essentially every single element of the plan as it currently exists in the statute. So you have to offer the same amount of leave, the same amount of time, the same benefits level. You have to offer the same protections. You have to do everything that we would do at the state. And then you have that additional requirement of having had a vote on top of that. So it's really the same thing. If you want to see it in writing, you can go to the Department of Insurance site, and there should be a link there where you can find what the criteria are.
Okay.
Okay.
And what prevents the employee from getting employer paid leave, i.e. sick leave and trust paid benefit?
At the same time, is that the question? Or concurrently?
It seems like
Or I
it
mean
is,
consecutively,
yes.
I'm sorry, it's consecutively. So
Mhm.
that's one of the, right, so it's an excellent question. It's one of the reasons why we will be doing the due diligence around eligibility. So we will, it's not our intent that people double dip. There is a provision in the statute that says if you're getting leave from other places, if you're getting workers' compensation, if you're getting unemployment, then you can't come to the authority and get additional leave or get more off when you're on leave than you would if you were getting paid. So it's not designed to be enriching or full income replacement, even though it's designed to offer about 95%. So those are questions that we would be asking employers as we go through the eligibility process. Well, is that person getting paid now? Are they on workers' comp? Did you let them go and are they getting unemployment? Because that would determine whether or not we would even offer them benefits.
Okay.
Okay.
And now when employers register starting in November, will there be a checklist provided of what they need to do?
Yes, there will be. So that's something you'll be able to find on the site. And we're actually just trying to make it so simple that you probably don't even you need a checklist. So I can tell you now you'll need your name of the that you do business under, you'll need your mailing address, you'll need an email, we'd like to have a good phone number, and we're probably gonna ask you for your FEIN number. And if you use a third-party administrator for your payroll, taxes, or any other purposes regarding payroll, it's not going to be really much more complicated than that. But there will be a checklist that you can use.
Okay, great. And I believe that is.
I'm sorry, Kate. We did get one other question. It went into the chat module, and I just wanted to make sure it was seen. So if you don't mind, I will ask it. Bear with me just a minute.
Perfect.
All right, hold on just a minute. The question is, can an individual take 12 weeks of PFML leave and then 12 weeks of Connecticut Family Medical Leave upon becoming eligible after 3 months of employment? That's assuming, of course, that they continue to qualify.
So let me make sure I understand the question. So the question is, could they be simultaneously eligible for federal leave and state leave?
Right.
That's the
So this
question?
is, yes, I'm reading it as it's written. It says, can an individual take 12 weeks of paid family medical leave and then 12 weeks of the Connecticut Family Medical Leave upon becoming eligible after working 3 months?
Okay. So under most circumstances, no. And let me answer it a different way. So there's the Family Medical Leave Act, right, which will become effective January 1, 2022. And under that, you have to meet those qualifying conditions that we outlined. You're building your family, you're taking care of someone who's on active duty, you have your own serious health condition. So you can have 12 weeks of that leave. That doesn't mean that all of that leave is going to be paid, right? That means that you're determining as the employer that you're going to give the person that leave. If they want to get paid for that leave and they don't have enough time to do that, they haven't accrued enough paid time, then they go over to the authority and the authority will pay them for that 12 weeks. We're not making a determination about the length of leave. They're coming to us and asking us just to get paid for it. So then if they have, so that's the 12, so they can take the 12 weeks. So then the question then is if they have a federally qualifying event, could they take another 12 weeks? Usually those leaves run concurrently. So most of the time that answer is no, but there might be circumstances where that answer might be yes. So those are the times where I'm telling you that you're probably better off talking to your HR professional or your employment counsel around that, because there are times when that could possibly happen. It's not that often at all. And I say this from having worked at Hartford 10 years. I mean, I could probably count the number of times that someone has done that. It's been very unusual circumstances.
Okay, thank you. All right, Kate, all you.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and appreciate everyone for joining us today. We will be posting this entire webinar to our website, so you can go and visit MetroHartford.com. Additionally, once the website is launched with more information, we'll be certainly sure to share that out in our daily news brief. So feel free to go over to our website. You can sign up for that daily email that gets sent out every single morning, Monday through Friday. For a couple upcoming events, just wanted to mention for people to save the date for Alliance members is we are hosting a meet and mingle event on September 16th at 3:30 p.m. Additionally, HYPE, our Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs organization, is hosting an event called Civic Matters and Transporting Connecticut into the Future. That is going to be hosted on September 1st at 5:30 p.m. So all of our events, you can go to our website, MetroHartford.com. And again, appreciate everyone's time today, and thank you for joining us. And thank you so much, Andrea, to you and your team for all the great information and for providing additional information as we move forward.
Great, thank you. We appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.